So you can choose to be very inspired and very motivational, and at times in an economy that does not support that. So I'll give you an instance. When I chose to go into business, I went to then the venture capital company of Zimbabwe. I made a choice that I was going to be a businessman. And when I walked out of there, I walked with a big regret later. They told me your ideas were too futuristic for Zimbabwe. Right? So if you look at everything, there's always that extra force. The choices then you then make after receiving a regret also has a basis on that future which then comes later. But what I can tell you is that choice is then no longer a choice, it's no longer determined by demography. It's not based on race, it's not based on gender, and it's neither also based on the economic climate. Because we have people right now in some of the poorest nations who are billionaires. Because at some point, they made a choice to say, I choose that I'm not going to live a life as a pauper. So I think if you look at prosperity, yes, it's defined by choice, but also you have to be cognizant of the, let's say, primary choices and secondary choices.
Okay. We have this idea called white privilege. What do you make of it? In the context of South Africa,
I would have loved that question.
21 years of democracy.
Sure, white privilege. White privilege is here to stay with us,
Okay.
not only in South Africa, by the way, the world over. As we were speaking earlier about the rules of engagement.
Maybe first, just who are you?
Oh, I am Xolisi Wakakana. I am an entrepreneur. I run an ICT company, a systems integrator, based here in Livonia, in South Africa. It's a company that I founded with two other Black women partners. Speak of white privilege, our company, Black women. You see, I emphasize Black women, specifically because in this country and specifically the world over, we battle with white privilege, especially because you had a South Africa where the rules of engagement were tipped over to white people. They amassed lots of capital, and we were being educated in order to serve them, in order to help them and enhance their capital. Now, when you then open the floodgates and say, all of you are free and the playing fields are level, you deal with white people who we see every day in the media. The rich have become richer, meaning white people have amassed much more capital in the country, specifically because they always had capital in order to build up more of their asset bases. They do not see this because they believe we are all equal now. The floodgates are opened and all of us survival of the fittest. Therefore, it is very difficult in South Africa to convince any of the white people to see that they are engaging with advantage in the world. They are privileged because the rules steer everything towards them. Even as we grow up, the advertising that we see, the prosperity that we see, is inclined towards people. They therefore are automatically advantaged, even if you were to take myself and take another white person and give us the same amount of resources. So white privilege is something that is intangible, difficult to explain, but is always...
is it real or a myth?
It is not a myth, it is real, and it's always putting white people ahead of us.
Okay. So you've experienced that yourself?
I've experienced it directly.
Directly?
Yes.
Okay.
And unless we are deliberate in tackling it and engaging it, we're not going to be able to...
Where would be the convenient place to start tackling
it? The biggest impact would be on actually changing the way people think. I'm at Zai Zhogbo. I founded Maths Genius Leadership Institute, where we do a lot of content development and a lot of discussions and talks and mentoring, where we're trying to help people think like mathematicians, because mathematicians are problem solvers. So we're saying if people can solve problems and make good decisions, then it'll be easier for them to be on a trajectory where they will succeed and actually achieve prosperity. So the first thing that has to be done is to work on how people view the world, because as
Is there a black way and a white way of viewing the world?
There is no black way or white way. It's an individual perspective that is taken. So you find that, as Tafazo mentioned, that prosperity is a function of choice. To say that your whole life, you're always making decisions at any given point. Like right now, you've made the decision to listen to me, and it has its consequences, whether good or bad. And you find that cumulatively, all the decisions, all the choices that you've made, regardless of environment, regardless of place of birth, have their consequences.
But they're not agreeing, the two of them.
Yes.
She's saying, no, how do you expect me to make a choice when whites have been making choices?
So I think to factor in her point of view, we can't be agnostic to the past. The past is there, it exists, it's real, but the choices that we make in our daily lives, in everything that we're doing, because that will affect what the results will be in the future. So we have to focus on the present, making optimal decisions that will lead us to prosperity, regardless of whether we didn't have the privilege or were the privilege. Because you find that if we try and go back to how this privilege came about, I would be interested in having an answer to the question to say, where were our forefathers when these guys were taking over? What is it that made these guys who came from Europe superior enough to conquer us? Were they more efficient in their tactics? Were they better thinkers? But I will not say.
What do you think?
I think that they had definiteness of purpose. We were comfortable in a comfort zone. We were happy with our lives. So as human beings, I think there's a fundamental truth that I hold, that anything that is natural, created by God, if we're to put it in a religious perspective, you find that it strives to grow. Growth can be financial, growth can be spiritual, growth can be in any facet of life.